with Reaction to the Hill's Joe Concha, America First Action Senior Advisor, former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. I counted literally minutes, and I didn't know what the motivation would have been in El Paso, Joe. I didn't know what it would be in Dayton. Turns out we have both sides of the political spectrum. It is not something that should be politicized at all. I don't blame Bernie Sanders for what happened to Steve Scalise. Steve Scalise doesn't blame Bernie Sanders. I don't blame Elizabeth Warren for Dayton. I don't blame President Trump for El Paso. Now, if we use this logic of the left, every single illegal immigrant that kills an American, everyone that dies from drugs that cross that border, every single sexual assault, violent assault by an illegal immigrant against America, based on their logic, we should blame them. I don't blame them. I can understand there might be some honest political differences or politicizing, building the wall. But this is what is predictable. The media, the Democrats will use any and every opportunity to bludgeon President Trump. If he cured cancer, they would find a way to spin it into he's a horrible person.
And blaming Trump in this situation, as you mentioned, blaming the president, Sean, that's very predictable. And I think the American people are onto it. However, Morning Consult poll taken about 2 years into the president's presidency found that 64% of voters polled say the media has done more to divide the country. 17%, less than 1 in 5, say the media actually has united the country more. So the perception is there that, yes, this is exactly what's going to happen in these situations. And the bias of omission here, Sean, is incredible. The fact that the El Paso shooter and his background was analyzed 10 times more than the Dayton shooter.
No, you're
because
wrong.
One narrative and one line can be drawn. What's that?
It was almost exclusively they ignored the Dayton shooter's political thought process, which was very different than the guy in El Paso. Both evil, and you can't blame people for the evil actions of anybody. Sean Spicer.
Look, I think your analysis has been spot on, Sean. This has been too much focus on who's to blame. The reality is suicide in this country is way up, especially among our veterans. Too many people are killing people through gun violence. The president today was pitch perfect. Everybody's been out there in the media and on the left criticizing the president. Today, he stood before America, talked about how we should all support these communities, sympathize with these families, pray for them, but also he offered solutions. He talked about the red flag. There is too much going on with mental health in this country, and the president today offered real solutions, how we can all come together, whether it's video games or movies or TV shows or the media. Something is going wrong where people are realizing that either they need to kill themselves to find solace or they need to kill others. Both are completely wrong. And I think that this is one of those moments in America where instead of figuring out who's to blame, we can figure out what to do. And for every critic of the President of the United States, today he stood before America and said, let's come together. Let's find those areas where we can find some common ground and solve this problem. And so I get that the left wants everything to do about guns. Those of us on the right are concerned about the culture, the violence on the media and in video games and in the movies. Let's find the common ground that the president put forward today, that Lindsey Graham talked about today. Come together and say to America, we get it. Let's stop figuring out who to blame. Because you're right, Sean, we didn't blame Bernie Sanders after the congressional massacre. We got to stop for a moment and say, how do we move forward? How do we fix this? And for once, Republican, Democrat, conservative, independent, never Trumper, come together today and say the president was right. He called out hate and bigotry and offered a way forward. Let's all join in that for once. Put politics aside and say this is the way to go.
Sean, listen, this is our American family. But you know what? Look at the silence in Chicago by the media mob. Look at the silence in Baltimore. Look at the silence in L.A. Look at the silence 1 mile from Nancy Pelosi's home. I think we're the only people that covered it. When I remember making the decision, Joe Concha, to scroll the names of people we never heard from, shot, murdered, killed in Chicago. Nobody ever heard of this. Why? Why is there that, democratic rule for decades? Poverty. The only thing I don't like about this video is I used to be skinny then. Go ahead.
Let me see if you on cable news, on any news over the last 24 hours, heard about this. A Chicago hospital, Mount Sinai, had to stop accepting patients to its trauma center because they were overwhelmed with patients of people that were shot. You mentioned the number before, 52 shot in Chicago this past weekend. Nobody speaks about that. And by the way, mass shootings have been going on in this country for a long time now. Columbine happened under President Clinton. Virginia Tech happened under George W. Bush. Newtown happened under President Obama. Those presidents weren't blamed. President Trump shouldn't be blamed here either. And the fact that we're doing that, that's what divides the country, Sean.
Hold on, Sean. Let's make this a policy fight about what you want. But today, let's come together as a country, agree with the president that he was pitch perfect in calling out hate, offering a solution.
It's never
and
gonna
agree.
happen.
I know that, but
Never.
for once, we keep leading on this. Let's just agree that the president did the right thing, and let's all stand behind him and then fight about higher taxes and lower taxes and more regulation and less.
Listen,
today, let's
Sean,
come together as a country.
I agree. It's never gonna sadly happen. The dog bites, the bee sings, you're feeling sad. Blame Trump. Thank you both.